Cave Hill is a towering, rugged mountain overlooking the city of Belfast in Northern Ireland. The hill owes its characteristic shape to basalt lava flows from 65 million years ago. For as long as people have inhabited this area, it has been steeped in local mystery and folklore. The hill is rumoured to be the inspiration for the classic novel Gulliver's Travels. Author Jonathan Swift supposedly imagined that the landscape resembled a sleeping giant watching over the city. And if you're looking from the right angle, you might just see what he's talking about. In 1913, local police in the Cave Hill area were inundated with a bizarre series of calls regarding a person in distress in Cave Hill Country Park. Oddly, all of these instances were remarkably similar. The caller had heard a male voice wailing and crying from the deepest part of the forest below Belfast Castle. In an attempt to assist someone who sounded to be in serious trouble, they followed the screams into the woods. However, just as they reached the point where the crying was the loudest, it would abruptly stop. The police mounted several searches in the area, but despite the relentless reports, they came up empty. The department eventually put the calls down to an elaborate series of pranks, and the investigation was dropped. Several years later, on a summer's evening in 1915, a young couple was walking along the woodland pathway when the man spotted something unusual hanging in a nearby tree. Leaving his partner at the path, he walked into the forest to investigate. As he approached the tree, he was overwhelmed by what he saw. Before him was the apparition of a man floating 2 feet off the ground. As he stared, dumbfounded at the sight, the hovering apparition slowly turned around to face him. The young man took off through the undergrowth, grabbing his confused partner as he reached the woodland path. The pair fled rapidly, and it was only when they were safely back on the city streets that the young man was able to explain to his girlfriend what had happened. In the wake of this sighting, many thrill-seekers and budding ghost hunters flocked to the site, and reports of the mysterious floating figure increased. The caretaker of Belfast Castle even had a frightening encounter himself while responding to a report that someone was lurking in the trees beneath the building. He was so petrified by what he saw that he dropped his kerosene lamp and ran back to the castle. For several years, the Cave Hill Forest became a place to avoid after nightfall. That was until a Friday evening in the spring of 1922, when two friends, John McAlevey and Frederick Orr, were walking on the forest path beneath the castle. They rounded a corner and spotted a strange, rounded white stone at the base of a tree trunk. On closer inspection, however, it wasn't a stone at all, but a human skull. Police sealed off the area, and several constables, armed with spades, began cutting through the brambles until they had revealed a full skeleton with the remains of a coat and a pair of boots still attached to the bones. A rusty penknife, wallet, teacup, and most significantly, an empty medicine bottle were also recovered. When the coroner was informed of the remains, he took the decision not to hold an inquest, but instead ruled the death as a suicide. On the 13th of April that year, a Mrs. Scott arrived at the police barracks. She recognised the belongings of the skeleton as those of her late husband, James Scott, a tailor from Waringstown, who had moved to Belfast and subsequently disappeared 9 years earlier. These final details transform the tone of this story, swinging it from spooky to heartbreaking and tragic. The remains were properly buried, and there were no further reports of the floating man after this discovery. It may seem a strange note to finish this video on, but I've included details of the Samaritans Helpline below this video. We can learn from this haunting and tragic tale. So, if you are struggling or know anyone who is, please don't hesitate or wait for support. You're never alone. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.